So I've had my ROG Ally for a week now. I got completely caught up in the hype train from the early reviews and the marketing, but being a small YouTuber, I didn't actually get a review sample. Now, I have absolutely loved my Steam Deck, and when I saw this, I realised I had to put my hand in my own pocket and buy one in. Now, this is an amazing handheld Windows device, so this video isn't going to be a bash the ROG Ally, and it's also not going to be an actual proper review. But I wanted to give my real impressions from my first week's use, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So let's start this video talking about some of the good. And wow, I really love the look of this device. Asus really put out all the stops and made a device which in my opinion looks actually better than the Steam Deck. As soon as I saw those glowing joysticks and silky smooth, bright 120Hz 1080p screen, I was sold. The white colour looks great, and it's even more compact than the Steam Deck. Now this is something that really pleased me, because as much as I love the Steam Deck, one of the biggest gripes I had was just how wide this device is for a handheld. I've been a big Steam Deck fan and user since it was released, but it got off to a really rocky start, which is understandable for a new device in a new category. Valve did an amazing job not only with this device, but creating a whole SteamOS operating system and then porting the Windows games over to that SteamOS. But when I got this device, the one thing that really bothered me was the lack of Windows. Yes, SteamOS is very good for the games that do played, but I had a lot of Windows games that crashed when we first got that. Now they've ironed a lot of the bugs out, and now a lot of the games that I played do work perfectly in SteamOS, but I still yearn to have Windows and full control on this device. So along comes the Ally with Windows. This is an amazing feat, and Asus have done a better job implementing this than I expected, and even the Armoury Crate is better than I expected it to be, having used it on laptops in the past. And when it works, it is amazing. I'm really enjoying using it. But the biggest problems I've had with this device are all Windows problems, which is the thing that I was wishing for when I got it. Setting up this device when you first receive it is pure frustration. Obviously, to use this Ally, you have to initially set it up like you would when you buy a new laptop, but with the on-screen keyboard. Well, with mine, Windows kept refusing to bring up that on-screen keyboard, meant there was no way I could fill in the details I needed. This took me ages to get it working and faffing around with it. It took me ages to get into just installing the Windows itself. And then after the first reboot, Microsoft Windows crashed and lost my Windows PIN, which then made it impossible for me to get into the Ally on first boot, taking me 20 minutes to fix the problem to get myself back in. This is a frustration you shouldn't have with a handheld console, something you'd never get with a Switch and even with the Steam Deck. So once I got Windows set up and I'm actually in, I've got to do the next fun part of a Windows install and do all my Windows updates and all the Armoury Crate updates. That took me nearly 2 hours to get all those downloaded and installed. So please don't plan on doing anything with this device for at least 3 or 4 hours when you first get it. And that's a real disappointment and sort of mars the enjoyment of a handheld console that you're getting. If you buy a Switch, you can plug a cartridge in and you're away pretty much almost instantly. But once it was all up and running, I finally got to experience the good side of the actual Windows-based Ally. I downloaded some games, I played around with Windows, I docked it, I added some devices such as controllers, keyboard and mice, and this thing just takes it all with ease. The power of this Z1 Extreme is really incredible. With its 8-core 16-thread CPU and Zen 3 graphics, it can even play some casual games at 1080p with a good frame rate. And the fact that I could plug this into a dock with a keyboard, mouse, monitor and use it as a gaming PC is just absolutely mind-blowing with the power that this thing has. And this is something I'm going to cover in more detail in a future video, along with some other videos I plan on doing on this device. So if you're not already subscribed, please consider doing so, because we're having a lot more content with this amazing little machine. So now I've used it as a PC, I thought let's try it as an actual handheld console. So I fired up a few of my favourite beat-em-ups, a bit of Street Fighter, a bit of Tekken, I also tried a few racing games to see how well the controls lend itself to this handheld. And the good news is, the joysticks, the D-pad, the buttons, the top triggers, they're all great. But unfortunately, that's more that can be said from the actual buttons on the back of this device. Not only do I find them quite unresponsive and obtrusive, when I'm holding it, I find it quite uncomfortable with these buttons here. I'd rather have them either removed or a little bit higher. They do feel much more comfortable with the buttons on the back of the Steam Deck than these buttons on the back of the Ally. Another thing that surprised me is that this has 3 power profiles available and a manual profile. I set it to the silent mode to start with, just to see how well it runs. This runs at 10 watts. I had great fun playing Mortal Kombat, Tekken, Wreckfest and Street Fighter all at 10 watts at 1080p high settings. Really impressive. I was expecting it to chug at 10 watts and to have to turn that up to the 15 or the turbo mode. And the best thing about the silent mode is this machine is absolutely whisper quiet and runs cool to the touch, which is what you want from a handheld. But despite the power being amazing and the controls being really good for a handheld on a Windows device, I came across another little gripe with this machine. When bashing away at the buttons, doing some combos in Street Fighter, a number of times, I don't know how I've managed to do it, but I've managed to bring myself out of the game into Windows, actually losing the bout I was playing, causing quite a lot of frustration. And that's something I never had happen, no matter how furiously I bashed the keys and the buttons on the Steam Deck. But being a Windows device, it's very easy to accidentally bring up multitasking, an action function, or Windows itself, freezing your game in the background, which will still be playing. And that was quite disappointing, but this is hopefully something that Asus can fix in a future update. But obviously, when I'm not button mashing, just playing other casual games, I didn't come across this problem at all. So playing my Wreckfest, playing Forza, I had an amazing experience, no problem with the controls, everything worked perfectly. But this leads me on to another little gripe I've got with this handheld, or handhelds in general, and that is the lack of ports. Now we've got at the top here, you'll see a USB-C and a strange connector alongside it. Now, amazingly, you can obviously plug this in via USB-C or the XG mobile graphics port. So with an XG mobile graphics, which is like an external eGPU, you can plug this in and have it almost running as a full powered desktop, which is really incredible. But if you don't have one of those, they're very expensive. I find only having the USB-C port can be a bit of a pain. So that means if you're plugging in your power, you've literally got no other ports. It would have been really convenient if Asus had actually given us a couple, maybe one at the top and one at the bottom, so you could dock it, or a couple at the top even, to give you a bit more flexibility with this device. Now, of course, you can just use a USB-C hub or a monitor with USB-C. There are other ways you can utilize that one port to make it split between all your peripherals, but it's something you're gonna have to really think about if you're using this day to day. Now, the last couple of gripes I wanna get off my chest for this games console is the Windows battery and sleep. Now, with my rose-tinted spectacles, think about having Windows on a device like this. Everything was rosy and I was really looking forward to it. But I completely forgot about some of the biggest issues of Windows, and that's battery life and modern standby. So first we can talk about the travesty that is modern standby. Many of us, I'm sure, have had a laptop, we've put it to sleep, we've slipped it into our laptop bag, only to an hour or two later, open your laptop bag to find it roasting away with no power left in your actual laptop. Well, you can add the Ally to that list. Even though Asus does a great job of trying to also override modern standby and put this to sleep if modern standby wakes it up, still a couple of times I've left this for a day or two, come back to find it completely dead. And that is a real shame. On a games console, like say maybe my Steam Deck or a Switch, you can put it to sleep, you can leave it for as long as you like, you can come back and it will still wake up. Not the same with Windows, and I'm hoping this is something that Microsoft one day will fix, or if they can't, at least Asus can actually get around it themselves. I know they're trying. And then with regards to the battery, with all the power of this Z1 Extreme, you can't be expecting all-day battery life, especially when you're gaming. This isn't a Switch. If you've got it in the actual silent mode, like I very often use it for casual gaming, when I've got it in my hands, you're looking at probably 3 hours of battery life, and that is good for a Windows gaming device, but it's certainly not, as I say, the same standards as you get with a Switch. But obviously, being that it's a USB-C device, you can certainly keep a charge or a random charge you've got handy and plug straight into that USB-C, or even a power bank to keep yourself going for those longer gaming sessions. Now, despite some of these niggles, I absolutely love this device and I'm so glad I bought it. But I want to make everyone aware that with a Windows Games handheld, there's going to be some issues. And if you've watched all the actual hype reviews, everyone's talking about all the positives with good reason. It's an amazing device, but nobody's talking about any of the negatives. And it is a Windows device. There are some issues here. But for me personally, I'm the sort of person that I'll use this partly as a handheld, partly as a desktop, and will spend a lot of time modding and tweaking this device. So for me, this is absolutely perfect. But if you're planning on looking for just purely a handheld, then maybe you should consider the Steam Deck, because this is a better, I think, pure handheld device. This is a better all-around device. And talking of tweaking and modifying this device, I'm actually looking forward to installing a 2TB SSD that I've just bought to upgrade from the measly 512 gigabytes that actually comes with the drive, because as soon as you start putting some games on here, you know that's going to be full. Now, there is also an SD card slot to help you top that actual memory up, but I do find, even with the Steam Deck, running games from the SD card is slower, and there's been a few issues on the forum with some people's SD cards failing. Hopefully, again, that's something that Asus will be able to patch very soon. But at the moment, I'd much rather be happy with just a 2TB drive with all my games on. So as I mentioned earlier on, with how much I'm loving this device, I'm going to make a series of videos with me using it and how I'm getting on with it in day-to-day use and how it compares against the Steam Deck, which I've used for pretty much a year now. So please, if you have any suggestions of any content you'd like to see on this ROG Ally, put it in the comment section down below and I will get back to you and take it into consideration. And as always, thank you for watching.